Hello, everybody. Welcome into a Wednesday edition of the Computer America Show, and we've got a great show planned for you. Sandy Berger got called away at last minute emergency, family emergency, and with her daughter. Hopefully, all will be well. And also Charles Tendell got pulled away at the last minute, so we've had a little bit of a schedule change. Joining us for both hours will be Nathan Evans, the managing editor of PopZara magazine, and also Ben is here, co-hosting the show with me as well. So stay tuned, relax. We'll be starting in about 4.5 minutes, and we will see you when we see you. So stand by. Yes. I wonder if I can
4 minutes until showtime.
move my mic back here so I can lean back more and be more relaxed. What do you think?
Nope, not working.
Wait a minute. Yeah, it works. No? Yes?
I don't know. Not paying attention.
You need Craig. You need to get a window. You get a car window, like a car door, so you can lean back and have your arm just dangle out like you're low riding in Sunset Boulevard.
Well, I have all those effects that I can do that, but you know, I have all the different background effects, you know, and
you get some hydraulics and start bouncing.
Yeah, exactly. Let's see if we can do this. Yeah, we get the beach background or something. Yeah. Let's see.
Oh goodness! Look at that. It's like you're really there.
Yeah, right there. I'm not. I don't think so.
You look like you're a ghost, just like just dissipating in the background.
3 minutes until showtime.
Oh gosh.
Looks like one of those shows they have on the Christian Channel where they try to scare the kids. Yeah. And they just said, "Here's your lesson today," and the head just pops in. The kids think it's great, but it's so scary.
I haven't seen that one.
They're all bad. They mean well, but the production values are horrible.
Netflix orders new children's show based on Magic School Bus.
I read that. I saw that.
It's
about time. They're bringing back everything.
Seems like it.
You know, they're bringing back VeggieTales.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
I thought that died. Good for them.
But it's coming back. I like that show. I didn't realize it was a Christian show, though. I guess I wasn't paying attention.
I didn't realize it either until I saw like the David and Goliath one, and then you're like, oh, okay.
It's like animated Christian Monty Python with vegetables.
Pretty much.
Until showtime.
You're trolling for some interesting news stories, Ben, maybe?
No, I'm just looking.
Yeah, see what we can come up with.
Here's a news story. PopZara is almost ready to come back to life.
No,
we're thinking next weekend is the official relaunch. We're probably gonna try to soft launch it this weekend, but we're very happy with the redesign.
Good.
Yep, it's been trying to mix like open source stuff and trying to make it as diverse and colorful as you want. And sometimes I love the guys, but talking to web guys who aren't trained in that is like speaking 3 different languages. They don't understand that design is important.
Until showtime.
Well, that's not fair. Not all of them, but sometimes they don't because they go for efficiency. So to them, a clean design is the best design. But I can't argue with that.
But it's not always fun to look at or fun to browse.
It's given a sterile look to a lot of websites, especially tech. I can't tell them apart. Think about this. Next time you look at a tech website, Ben, look at the author and notice how many of the author pictures are in bubbles. They're almost all in bubbles because they all use the same software. They all use the same plugins. And I hate to say it, so are we. We're going to do it too. But we're going to have colorful bubbles. So.
Okay. Maybe we should get some of those too.
Tiny bubbles.
It's the WordPress is good for that sort of thing, but WordPress has the same problem all open source does. When something goes wrong, it all goes wrong. So you gotta learn to live with that too.
Your show will go live in 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1.
Broadcasting live It's America's longest-running national radio talk show on computers, Computer America, hosted by national columnist Craig Crossman. Look for Craig's weekly column in your favorite newspaper. This show is being beamed nationwide at ComputerAmerica.com. Keep it here for technology news, computer products, guest interviews, and your phone calls. You're listening to Computer America.
Hello and welcome into the Computer America Show. It's the nation's longest-running, nationally syndicated radio talk show on computers. Computer America is heard around the world and coast to coast. And I'm your host,
the great and Oracle, Craig Crossman.
And I'm your co-host, Ben.
Hey, welcome, Ben. Ben is back. Yes, we've had a slight change here on tonight's show. Sandy Berger was scheduled to be here tonight, but she had a family emergency, and we wish her well. I understand it's something, her daughter had to go to the hospital in Florida. Sandy's up in North Carolina, so hopefully that will all work out. And Sandy will be back with us next month at the same time, same time. Hopefully everything will be okay. And let's see, and of course, Charles is not here with us because Charles had not necessarily an emergency, but he had a scheduling conflict where he had to be somewhere early tomorrow, and so
he had to skip town. So
he had to skip town, right? Exactly. They're chasing him.
On the lam.
Yeah, exactly. He's on the lam, and so in the meantime, we have filling in for Charles, my son, Ben Crossman, my co-host. Exactly. And so
I promise not to mess up too much.
No, you don't mess up. You do a terrific job. You do, really. So we've got all that in place. Let's see. And we have so instead of Sandy Berger joining us for both hours is one of our correspondents. He is the managing editor of Pop Zara magazine. Pop Zara, if you're not familiar with it, is a bazaar of popular culture spanning the world of arts and entertainment. And you'll hear views on video gaming, movies, technology, cultural movements, and icons, and yes, even politics. A little bit of everything. They've got opinion pieces, debates, reflections, reviews, analysis, news tidbits, and so much more. And my understanding is they're getting ready to come back online with a whole new revision of their website. Nathan, welcome back to Computer America. How are you?
Hey, Craig, and hey, Ben. Good to be back.
Yes. And thank you for filling in at the last moment. I know I called you this afternoon when I got a call from Sandy Berger. And I said, "Hey, can you do the show?"
Well, I had to call President Obama and move some things around again, but he's used to that with me by now. When it comes to Craig, anything's good.
You know what I heard about President Obama yesterday? I heard that he's going to be when he retires, from his presidency, he's going to people guessing where are you going to be living, either in D.C. or go to New York or. So my understanding is he loves coming to Asheville where we are, and evidently he's buying a home here in Asheville, and he's going to retire here.
And it's going to be right next door, so
yeah, make it very.
Might have him on the show every once in a while.
Yeah, at this point, we just might well to have it.
That's going to make grocery shopping a joy.
Well, property values will go up, obviously. So.
And of course, no more E. coli in the cabbage, so something else there.
So there you go. So yeah, exactly, and so that'll be fun. That would be fun. So anyhow, as I said, we're going to talk about things now. Last night we had Grayson Hamilton on. Did a terrific job reporting on E3, and he did some Microsoft and Sony comparisons, and Nintendo and EA. He talked about some of them, and his opinion felt that that there was a winner. For E3 was Microsoft. They didn't do any hardware. It was all software, new game announcements. They had a couple of things that really blew him away, and which we talked about talked about quite profusely and proficiently. He did a very nice analysis of E3. And but there are still other things to talk about, and that's one of the things that we're going to talk about. We're going to cover a wide variety of topics tonight with Nathan. And if you have a question or comment about anything that we're talking about tonight with Nathan, or you have an opinion about something that you'd like for us to hear, You can join in as well. You can give us a call at 347-884-8881. That's 347-884-8881. We'll get you on and get you through. We also have a special email address you can write to us if you don't want to go on the air. It's live, L-I-V-E, at computeramerica.com. You can also join us in our live interactive add-on chat room from our homepage at computeramerica.com. You'll see there's the first pull-down menu. It says chat room/video, or you can hit the button there on the homepage, and you'll see our add-on chat room right there. You just put in a username. That's the name you'll be known by when you go into the chat room. Click the sign-in button, and your Java-enabled browser on a Windows machine, Mac, Linux, they all work, will move you into the Computer America chat room. And sharing that very same page is our live Computer America video streaming page. It's brand new. It's up. It's running. It's out of beta, and that live Computer America video streaming page is brought to you by Otherworld Computing. In other words, you can not only listen to the show, you can actually watch the show. You can see me. You can see Ben. Well, you can sort of see Nathan, and that's.
I believe that's a very accurate visual approximation of what Nathan looks like.
That's my driver's license photo, actually.
Yeah, well, you just need to take the mask off. Anyway, it's brought to you by Otherworld Computing, quality products, expert support since 1988, now celebrating its 25th anniversary. Hey, if you need anything for your Apple products, your iPhone, your Mac, your iPad, check them out at www.macsales.com. They've got all kinds of interesting things coming up. They just started the new blog, by the way, called RocketYard.com. Brand new blog. Check it out. And I mean, if you're looking for, I don't know, anything, a memory for your current Mac or for your legacy Mac, or portable batteries replacements, they even have installation videos. You can watch all of that. They even have their own YouTube channel. Anything you order there, if it's more than $49, you get free shipping. And like about 80% of the country, you get your product in about 2 days. You can check out their solid-state drive line, their Aura line. You got a 120 gigabyte hard drive for $95. You add the an external case for it for an additional $20. Really nice stuff. They got great prices. Again, excellent support. Visit them at macsales.com. Tell them we sent you. Okay. So, where do we begin?
I got one.
Where? Okay.
This one apparently has been floating around the internet for a while, and I don't think you guys actually talked about it on the show. If you did, I'm sorry. It was a chatbot actually passed the Turing test for the first time.
No, really? Now that's important. Now, to recap, the Turing test, that was done by Alan Turing, a computer scientist back in the 60s or 70s. Yeah, he made something what's known as the Turing test, and the test was really simple. In other words, if you type into a computer and you can't tell if you're talking to a live person, let's say on another terminal or another screen, and you can't tell if you're talking with a computer or with a live person, then you've passed the Turing test, and of course, obviously, if it is an actual computer program, you've reached a state of artificial intelligence to the point where you can't tell it from a person. It's very interesting. That's a quick synopsis of what the Turing test is about. And evidently, you're saying now they've got a robot that you can converse with, and you can't.
Technically, it's a chatbot, and if you've ever used a chatbot, it's you can go to many of them around the web, and they, Cleverbot, I think, is the most well-known one. That's the one from Google. Mm-hmm. And you talk to it, and it learns as it talks to people, and it talks to thousands upon thousands of people every day, and it improves its English. It learns what what it says in certain situations to what to what you type at it, yep. And therefore it responds.
Yeah, but now it's getting to the point where if you can't tell if it's somebody else.
The big thing with this is with this Turing test, this robot. Now the Turing test, everyone that Turing actually outlined that if it just fooled 1/3 of the people it talked to, mm-hmm. that like in the next 60 years, if it fooled 1/3 of the people that it talked to, then the Turing test would be successful. Mm-hmm. Now he was just talking in casual banter. He wasn't actually setting up actual guidelines to what it takes to pass the Turing test. he didn't say if it had to be 100% complete, like 100% of people couldn't tell, or if it had to be 80% or what have you. But he said in casual conversation, over the next 50 years or so, 33%, a third of the people won't know if they're talking to a robot or a human. Yeah. And so this chatbot was, I can actually name the name of it. It was Eugene Gooseman was the name of the bot. And it passed the test in the fact that 10 out of 30 people thought it was talking to an actual person. But here's where a lot of people kind of say it didn't really pass, was because it faked being a non-native speaker. The Turing test was all done in English, but it faked being a non-native speaker. It said it was Indian, and so whenever you asked it a question and it didn't, it didn't speak proper English and things like that, and then whenever it didn't have a proper response for whatever you typed at it, it would change the subject.
It fell back and they oh well, I didn't really understand the question. I mean, I don't speak English fluently.
Yeah, it would do that, or it would change the subject abruptly. And and also there were some things that just because just the way the chatbot was programmed, it says stupid things like 2 + 2 = 5, and it still does that. But even with even just being claiming to be a non-native English speaker and dodging every question that it didn't know, it still fooled 10 out of 30 judges.
Well, yeah, and they were aware of that. So that is actually no, the test in Blade Runner, Jonathan, had nothing to do with Turing. Oh boy, no, that was to see if you were a clone or not. But that no.
I think the story's wrong. I think they didn't pass the Turing test. They were actually trying to call tech support for a Microsoft product, and they couldn't get an answer, and they kept trying to change the subject.
Yeah, it could have been. No, but that's still. I mean, that is really interesting. When I was getting my degree in computer science, I actually wrote a little program. I had an Apple. Believe it or not, I had an Apple II computer at the time with a 300 baud modem. I actually wrote a program in BASIC actually that allowed me to converse with people, with another modem who had dialed up, and because I was running a bulletin board at the time called the ABBS, the Apple Bulletin Board System. Again, it was a complete bulletin board system, which I modified and changed and everything. I didn't write the original program, but I was running the bulletin board, one of the first Apple bulletin boards.
You must have got so many dates.
Well, listen. So and then what I could do is I wrote some code so I could interject into it, and I would, instead of talking to the bulletin board, I would say, hey, this is the computer, can I help you with a problem? And I had a way of hitting certain keys where I could fire off macros, which kind of anticipated some of the things that I would want to say, rather than my having to type them, because the way I had it is that as I typed a letter or I typed a sentence, you wouldn't see it on the other end until I hit the enter, the return key, and then it would fire the whole sentence off at once. Then I could send a macro so I could, I could respond very, very quickly. And I had a lot of people fooled. People were, thought they were talking to a computer and not to a program. And I had hours of entertainment doing something like that. It was actually a lot of fun to do that, and I had friends over on my end watching how I could interact. And it was amazing how many people, and we're talking what, when this was like 80, 81, 80, 79, who willingly accepted back in those days that they were actually talking to a machine and not a person. Some people get suspicious, but for the most part, they accepted the fact that they were talking to a computer. And back in 79 and 80, that was just way over the top, but they accepted it. And it was just amazing to me how many people accepted the premise that they were talking to a computer.
I think the Jetsons kind of paved that road for you.
What's funny?
I don't know. Nate, what do you think?
Well, actually, it's funny. I read this story not too long ago about you guys all know Philip K. Dick, the science fiction writer who wrote Blade Runner, and there was an experiment to turn him into a communicative android. And what they did is, I think it was Australia. Don't quote me, but I believe it was Australian. The whole Mad Max thing. But they created this android that had all of his writing, all of his speeches, all of his voice samples in, and they would invite people to come over and talk to him. This was predated Siri, of course, and you could ask him a human question, and the talking Philip K. Dick android would talk back to you. And of course, most of it was gibberish. And I forget how the story ended, but I remember his head was stolen or lost at an airport.
Okay.
But what's funny is, since then, since the 70s, we've had things called, there's the Japanese theory of uncanny valley. And that's very interesting as it compares to communicative robots. It's because there was so much effort to try to make everything realistic. And it's mostly applied to, how a robot looks and its mannerisms. But it's also related to how a robot talks. And like Ben was saying, this robot, I thought it was the Ukraine Ben, but I guess maybe I'm wrong, maybe it's India. But he pretended to be was it a 13-year-old boy or a 14-year-old boy?
Yeah.
And what happened is you can get away with saying, oh, I don't speak English very well. But the fact is that over the last 15 years, humans have actually lowered their communicative skills. Instead of having a computer be fluent, we've actually accepted the computer GGG. You remember the movie E.T. with that speak and spell? Didn't sound Look at every talking toy from the 80s. Yeah. None of that sounded fluent. They all sounded like fuzz. You probably have a bunch of kids with speech impediments because of those things. But the fact is that we're so used, as kids today, we're so used to seeing this machine assembly language and grammatical incorrection that maybe the bar has lowered, that we can be fooled simply because we've come to accept mediocre language.
Well, I still wonder to this day. You've got one of the great minds of our century. What's the scientist who has Lou Gehrig's disease?
Stephen Hawking?
Stephen Hawking, right. And he's still using a device that makes him sound like this. And he doesn't have to have. He can have something today that makes a really naturally sounding speech, yet he still insists.
Someone interviewed him, and he said that he actually kind of realized, people kind of recognize his voice for being that. Like, that's his voice now.
Yeah, but it isn't, and they could certainly digitize his voice and make him sound like, or something close to it, very natural speaking. But he still uses the phonetic, old phonetic speech generation system that but from the early '90s.
You remember the movie critic Roger Ebert? He lost his ability to speak because of throat cancer, and he had to have surgery so he couldn't talk anymore. And this AI outfit, they took samples of all his things because he had 30 years of speaking. And they assembled a robotic voice for him so he could type and talk. And there's footage of it, him talking, and it sounds like him. He gave it up. He said it sounds like him, but it's not him. And when people hear that, they long for his own voice. So he, like Ben was saying with Hawkins, I heard the interview with Hawkins too, by the way, Ben. He said he's come to accept that this robotic voice is him. And to celebrate, he actually did an interview. He did not interview. Do you remember he was on Futurama several times. As himself. And there's a really funny skit where Fry, the character's in the alleyway, and Stephen Hawking goes, hands up, and Fry says, who's that? And of course, it's a fun episode, and Stephen Hawking's played with it, and if that's his choice, then if he wants to sound like a robot.
Yeah, I guess that's his choice. He wants to sound like a robot. That's fine. I mean, okay. I mean, but the point is, you don't have to. I mean, I just heard. We have Siri and everything. I just heard, what was it, when they made the announcement for Cortana, Microsoft's answer to Siri. The voice for Cortana makes Siri sound stilted. I mean, that was probably the most natural sounding speech that I have heard yet to date. Very impressive.
Oh yeah, but see, Cortana has an advantage. Cortana has been played by the same actress since the beginning. So Cortana is a video game voice. That came out in 2001 for the original game Halo. So
right.
So they have this wealth of stuff to draw upon. The Siri girl recorded her samples, I think, in 2000 for GPS machines. And so Apple recomposed old voice samples. But the thing with Cortana, that's it. That's all you get with Cortana. Cortana is a defined female persona. You don't get to modulate. With something like Siri or even Google's voices, you can change the gender, the inflection, you can change the accent. I mean, it's so variable. And so what Cortana's doing is sort of faking it a little bit because it's one voice that can sound nice and clear, but it can't. You can't make a male Cortana or an Irish Cortana or a Hispanic Cortana because you'd have to re-record all the voices.
Mm.
So it's interesting stuff.
I didn't realize it was a recorded voice. I thought it was a synthetic voice that they had had modeled a human, mathematically modeled a human larynx.
Who is the? Let me get you the address for her, because I remember she was just on a front page story, I think, on The Verge or Ars Technica or some website like that.
Well, I guess my question is, why can't they just mathematically model the human larynx? They're mathematically modeling. Yamaha does some amazing work. They've modeled instruments, pianos, trumpets. I mean, but they're not digital samples. They're actual.
I think just like everything with the human body, everything from thinking to walking to whatever. Yeah, I mean, have you ever tried to see one of those robots walk like a human does? It's just awful. And I think everything with humans, it's just so complex that something that we do naturally takes a machine way more to do.
Yeah, but they're getting. I've seen what was the one from Honda, the Honda robot.
Asimo or Ivo.
He walks really naturally. He does. They really smooth that out. I've seen robots walking fairly naturally now. So look, everything that we do, there's a mathematical model or answer that can be done. I mean, that's the nature of the math. And how it emulates it. I mean, we're all math,
By the way, Craig, it's Jen Taylor is the voice of the Cortana.
Jen Taylor. So why? I assumed that they had mathematically modeled the voice. If that's the same thing for Siri, then okay, then they're taking all these different inflections. But I think the next step for this is to do exactly that. Just mathematically model the human larynx and then make it speak words. More naturally. I think that's going to be the next generation of artificial intelligent speech.
Then we'll have Scarlett Johansson.
Yeah, then you can make it sound like anybody, at that point.
It'll be interesting. I wonder if it has to do with computational power. I know it's run on giant servers from DARPA.
Absolutely. Computational power is enormous, but we're getting to the point now. That's why Yamaha is so successful in their mathematical models of all these instruments. I mean, the computational power is getting to the point where it's up to the task, it's up to the job. All these multiple cores, it's getting to the point where they can do it. You know what's funny is that you look at the introduction of drum machines in the late '80s with synth music. And what's funny is that it gives access to a bunch of people who don't necessarily know how to play the real instrument, and it sounds fantastic, and it sounds so perfect, and that's when you hit that uncanny valley where it sounds too perfect, and you start recognizing notes and samples that wouldn't exist because it doesn't have that human flaw. Right, but they've introduced those human flaws again. You're right, absolutely. It was too perfect, and that's one of the things that we talked about Yamaha, that they've actually introduced. These anomalies that make it sound more natural. It's just like when you look at
the notes play half of a millisecond too late, or something. Yeah.
Right. In other words, which actually makes it sound less mechanical. That's exactly correct. It's like when they're trying to model a human face, and you can watch it, and the graphics are so incredible, but it looks artificial, and so they're introducing skin blemishes and flaws. And the left, it's not mirror images of the left and right, and they're adding all these things which make us human, and they're getting to the point where now you're starting to look at it and you're going, oh, is that an actor, or is that something being mathematically generated? We're getting closer and closer to it. I think the two holy grails are, again, modeling a human figure or the face and speech. That's one of the things. And the other thing is the voice, the tonal inflections, and the thing, and it's not perfect. And because it's not perfect, is what makes it human.
But see, that's where art comes into play with technology. Before technology you just had to brute force it. Can we model this and this with technology? But now you're getting into can we make it sound right? Can we make it look right? That's where art comes in. So so now we're seeing art mixing with technology.
It's part art and it's part science. Absolutely, I give you that. It's a little bit of both. It's still math though, but how you're dealing with it and how they're introducing all these anomalies and flaws to make it look more real. is bringing us closer to the ability to display people graphically that are not really there, or speech from people that are not really speaking.
It's funny. It's we were talking about this before. Today, as I mentioned in an email, Craig, today is the 20th anniversary of the movie Jurassic Park.
Mm-hmm.
It came out 20 years ago today, and to celebrate, I saw this really cool video they just put out about how Steven Spielberg didn't want CG because it didn't look real enough. He wanted stop motion animation, which he knew didn't look real.
Right.
But his thinking is that if people will accept the fact that it has flaws because they know it's a flawed technology, sort of like the old Harryhausen films, like Clash of the Titans and things like that. They don't look necessarily real, but they look great because they're physical. They have that texture that CG at the time didn't have.
I remember seeing Jurassic Park when it first came. I remember going to the opening and seeing the movie, and I was struck with the fact that those raptors and everything look so real.
Mm-hmm.
It's amazing, and I said, "Wow, is this CG? What is this? What is this that I'm looking at?" It didn't appear. It was way too smooth for the Ray Harryhausen stop motion, and that looked like they didn't look like clay models or anything. It looked like they were doing. So you're saying that was still not CGI back then?
Well, what happened is that Spielberg wanted to do a stop motion. And it was I think it was Stan Winston who was a genius. He passed away a few years ago, unfortunately. But Stan Winston is the practical effects genius, and he had just come off of Terminator 2, which is fantastic, using CG. But he also did stop motion animation. And if you see this video, just anyone can Google it. Just type in Jurassic Park 20th anniversary. You'll actually see the footage that was shot in stop motion. It didn't look bad, but the problem is these computer animators thought this is our time, so they stayed at work late at night, and they generated their own little clip to prove that CG could be done. And when you see the work they did, keep in mind this was 20 years ago. This predates Windows 95.
Yeah.
Fantastic. And the real effort is that they compromised. Half the dinosaurs you see in the movie are actually animatronics, and the other half is CG. But the way they used them was so. Well, again, you need a good director like Spielberg to decide that.
You make it fluid. Yeah, exactly.
You can't tell, and that's one of the reasons why the film it still looks better than almost anything that comes out today, because of the reticence to bombard the person with artificiality. Mm-hmm. It was that mix that kept it grounded, and that's a lot of directors today could probably learn a little bit from that.
My favorite scene for that movie is when they were running away from the T-Rex, and he's looking in the side view mirror, and it says the objects in the mirror are actually closer than they appear.
That's your favorite?
That was my favorite scene.
Oh, my favorite's when the head professor archaeologist guy finds the Triceratops. No, not the Triceratops. A giant pile of poop.
Yes.
And then they have to dig for his bone. That's awesome.
And Jeff Goldblum's famous line. Can't say it on the radio.
Yeah.
But it's that's a lot of dung.
Yes.
No, but it's fantastic because you look at how films are now, and that was the moment they changed. That was the Star Wars moment. That was the moment that films could never be the same anymore. It wouldn't be acceptable. And it's fantastic. It's a lot to think about uncanny valleys. And I mean, human beings have never seen a dinosaur. We don't know what a dinosaur looks like. We know what we think it looks like.
Right.
But now we find out that the T-Rex probably had feathers. So that's.
Oh yes.
It's very true.
It'd be kind of weird having like a 80-foot turkey running after you, but it'd still be pretty horrifying.
With sharp teeth, yes, exactly.
What was it? I actually read a forum where Jeff Goldblum, if any of you are familiar with Reddit, he actually did an AMA where people come on and they ask him whatever they want, and then normally they it's like a PR stunt thing where he usually has the main thrust, but you can ask him anything you want. Jeff Goldblum, I swear to whatever mightier power there is above me, probably Craig Crossman. I swear to Craig Crossman, Jeff Goldblum types like Jeff Goldblum. He types the uhs. He was like, well, and like the stuttery speech that Jeff Goldblum has. He types just like that.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
I liked him in The Fly.
That's my favorite Jeff Goldblum movie, by the way. I love The Fly.
Yeah, The Fly was great. Oh, listen, we're at the bottom of the hour, and we're having a lot of fun here on a Wednesday night with Nate and Evans with Pop Zara Magazine. Ben and I will be back with them. We've got a a news tips bulletin by Marty Winston. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Hey everyone, have you heard about the No Hair Removal device that's sweeping the globe? If you want to go weeks without shaving and get smooth, professional quality results, here's our favorite host, Cheryl, for No Hair Removal.
Thanks. Hey gals, I love talking about my No. It's this cute little hair removal system that you can take with you and use almost anywhere at home or on the road. No more expensive in-office treatments, painful waxing, and no more wasting your valuable time. Got unwanted facial hair? No has patented Thermocon technology that works on all hair and skin colors, so it's perfect for using on all body parts. And now you can take advantage of this incredible risk-free trial. Get the No, the facial kit, a travel case, and a $100 discount shopping card, and you don't risk a penny to try it. Try the incredible No hair completely risk-free. Call 1-800-953-5415. That's 800-953-5415. 800-953-5415.
Looking for a best friend? Brother Wolf Animal Rescue has your best friend waiting just for you. The mission is to protect and enhance the lives of companion animals and the people who love them. Their no-kill rescue shelter is open year-round, making it easy for people to adopt their best new friend. This year, Brother Wolf will find homes for over 2,400 orphan dogs, puppies, cats, and kittens. All have ended up as an orphan through no fault of their own. Brother Wolf has created a safe, nurturing environment where these special animals can heal emotionally and physically until they find a lifelong home. Their life-saving transport program brings dogs and puppies from overcrowded shelters in the south to rescues in the north where homes are easier to find. Brother Wolf Animal Rescue is a 501c3 organization. To learn more about their life-saving work and to make a donation, visit their website at www.bwar.org. That's www.bwar.org. Help to realize Brother Wolf's vision when no animal is euthanized for lack of a home.
Who's a good boy?
Hello, this is Marty Winston for Computer America with a News Tips Bulletin review of the HP NV5530 and Instant Ink. We'll let the tail end of that wag this dog. The new HP Instant Ink service works with selected printer models, SMB, small and medium business scale.
That's cool.
Monitoring the number of pages they print, and based on that, automatically reordering ink, which is shipped to you. The lowest tier is $2.99 for 50 pages a month. To let us review it, they provided an HP NV5530 all-in-one printer, a decent performer that could be a good idea for a small business or somebody just starting out, or even occasionally for college kids who have a lot to print. The program anticipates when ink runs out, so chances are you get the refill before the printer runs empty. The weakness is that if your week-to-week, month-to-month usage isn't fairly consistent, or you're not sure how many pages you print, you could easily sign up for more or less ink than you need. If your usage is consistent, the program's ink pricing is better than retailer pricing. We note that this represents lost revenue to retailers. Bottom line, for many people, the new HP Instant Ink program may prove a good value, and one of its supported printers, the HP NV5530, is more than capable as an SMB workhorse. This is Marty Winston at the News Tips Bulletin for Computer America.
Welcome back to the Computer America Show. Thank you for that.
There's a weary little look on your face.
I used to do this. I no longer do this, but now I'm doing it, so I don't know what to do. Welcome back to the Computer America Show, 33 minutes past the hour. Thank you, Mr. Marty, for that. And you know what? I'm all for bringing back Wednesday Madness here on Computer America, which I think this is what this is just about turning into.
Open vote? Yeah, any topic you want to talk about. Right now we're kind of talking about, I think, movies, Jurassic Park. I mean, this is fun stuff. Again, if you want to have a comment, just call us, 347-884-8881. If you have something you want us to computer-related or not even non-computer related here, that's we're here to entertain, you know. As I said, so we were talking about the techniques that they use in Jurassic Park and the kind of mixing CGI and stop motion or live animatronics actually. and which is I think the
I have a question.
Yeah.
CGI in movies is just every movie has it, and when it doesn't have it, it wins an Oscar because that's apparently all the Academy cares about. When was the last time you saw something in a movie CGI that blew your mind? It's just so common that you don't even think about it anymore. It's like, oh yeah, that's a dragon. Oh look, it's breathing fire over everything. Well, of course, that's what dragons do. But I mean, it doesn't blow your mind anymore.
Did you see the movie The Wolf on Wall Street?
No,
no, but I heard good things.
Did you know that about 80% of that movie was CGI?
Wow.
Really?
Yeah, there's a fantastic video clip out there. This is a Martin Scorsese film. He's been playing with CGI lately. His last movie before The Wolf of Wall Street was that movie Hugo, or one of his last movies was Hugo, which is his first 3D CG movie. It was the whole thing was CG. But in The Wolf of Wall Street, if you watch the making of, you would be astonished to see exactly. They created entire backgrounds out of nothing. So everything was spliced in. A door frame became a mansion. It was fantastic. It was low rent, but it looked bigger than it was simply because of the augmentation. And it's literally, like you said, you see it all the time. You can't distinguish it from real life anymore.
Yeah, I've seen videos of showing how they can use, where they don't use green screen anymore, or they use it in such a way that you think you're looking at somebody out in the middle of the street, doing a street scene in New York, whatever, and they're not. But you cannot tell. It looks so real. It looks like they could be anywhere at this point.
And I'm going to put a link to that video in the chat room as soon as I figure out how to copy and paste into the chat room. So if you want to see The Wolf on Wall Street, it's astonishing. It really is. It's hard to believe how much of that film. So.
So CGI.
What I'm saying is it's just so commonplace nowadays. I'm beginning to think no matter what they do, no matter what they CGI into a movie, people aren't really going to be surprised anymore. It's just going to be another part of the movie.
I think they'd be surprised if there wasn't any CG. It's what's funny, about a week ago there was a big news story that they leaked, quote leaked photos of the new Star Wars film, and people were astonished because they're actually building a full-scale replica of the Millennium Falcon, and there's Muppets in the film. So it seems like a good portion of the next Star Wars film will be practical effects. And that made news simply because they thought it would all be green screened and CGI.
That's good though. I mean, I always hear a lot of people saying that what made the original Star Wars endearing was that practical effects trumped CGI. I mean, CGI was there, but practical effects were everywhere that they could. And then with 1, 2, and 3, the later ones, the ones that were released in the early 2000s, those relied heavily on CGI, and they just didn't have that same feel to it.
Well, wait a minute. Now, the first Star Wars, there was virtually no CGI done. In that. Everything was with models and
stunts and cables and actors.
Exactly. And then they later on, when Mr. Star Wars, the director, what's his name? George Lucas, got the money. He actually digitally remastered and also added digital effects that were not in the original movie. Just because he could do it. But if you watch, I remember seeing the first one. When did it come out? In '72, I think it was. The first one.
77.
77. Okay, in '77, there was virtually no CGI. It was all models and cameras moving around the models. I mean, they were doing some cutting edge stuff, and it was the birth of Lucas, the special effects division of that. But the point is, I think there was little to no CGI in something like that. They just didn't have the technology back then.
It's funny. Here's a little trivia for you. I didn't realize this until I was researching it for an article a long time ago. But the actual first mainstream movie that had genuine CGI effect, a lot of people will point to Tron and everything, but the first fully formed CG effect in a film was Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan. And and the reason it's so interesting, right? Because you know who provided that special effect? It was George Lucas. Disney had, long story short, it's a fascinating story. I recommend everybody check it out. But this involves Pixar. Pixar was being formed by a computer science person like Ed Catmuller, and he was hiring all these people to create rendering software. And George Lucas had invested heavily in the company. because he thought that CG could be a replacement for blue screen effects, and what I figure what they call the effect. It's matte, like a digital matte that you could put through different type of compositions. And what happened is, and to test it, they provided a little CG effect in Star Trek II, the scene when they show the project terraforming a planet. That was what would become Pixar. George Lucas was not impressed. And so he decided to dump the company. And who was waiting in line to buy the company?
Jobs.
Steve Jobs. But George Lucas missed out, and now it's ironic because, like you said, Craig, once he had enough money and once Star Wars was being released, he decided to go back and tinker with it.
He
and
did.
This is funny because not only did he do that, he actually birthed an entire movement called haters. This is where it comes from. If you look in the dictionary under the word haters, George Lucas created haters by having Han Solo shoot first or shoot second.
There was a lot of controversy over
who shot first.
That's right, exactly. And people actually preferred the original movie because when I went to see the original version, one of the what was it? Not Jabba the Hutt was a guy, and you see him as because that's all he could do at the time. Then he goes back and changed it. So you could see it was this creature, but you kind of like the way I just kind of like the original version. He added scenes like the ship flying into the Tatooine, the Mos Eisley Airport. A lot of things he changed, and I didn't like the changes. I liked the original way that was done.
I think a lot of people's resonance wasn't that he added effects, is that he used the effects to change the narrative.
Yeah.
And when that's just a testament to Star Wars because the fans are so hardcore. But if you change a character's motivation, or if you change this or you change that, they kind of get protective of that, and you can't blame them because they grew up watching something different.
That's right. Yeah. I mean, this is it. You grew up watching this stuff, and now I understand if you're seeing it generation, you're seeing it for the first time, then maybe you wouldn't make a difference. But for the original people who watched it, the original version, it makes a big difference.
Yeah, and it's funny. Spielberg went through that nonsense for a while too with his own films, and he re-released E.T. back in 2002. And what most infamously, he edited out all the guns. He took all the guns and he turned them into walkie-talkies. Yeah. And what's really sad is that became the focus of the remake. However, no one talked about how good the CG was. He added CG ETs. He enhanced scenes with digital backgrounds, and it looks marvelous. I think it looks fantastic. But everyone talks about the guns. And he has since gone back and put the guns back in.
Oh, he did?
Yeah, and it's funny. There was a famous South Park episode where the kids decided to go and stop Spielberg and George Lucas from remake or CGing. I see Ben laughing. He knows
that episode.
To stop him from changing. Was it Indiana
Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull?
Yeah, and it's funny, they don't want you to go back and change it, or if you do go back and change it, it is your prerogative as the owner of the film. You can do that. Allow a original copy to remain, because those of us who've grown up with those effects, some of us like the practical effects. A lot of work went into that.
Yeah.
I look at Yoda. I prefer Muppet Yoda over CG. In fact, I prefer Muppet anything. And one little last thing. Go back to the '80s. Jim Henson during the 1980s was so adamant about creating practical special effects. A lot of people wonder if had he lived, would he have gone to CG? And I think probably as an augmentation, sure. He used CG in his televisions. But you look at wonderful worlds built only with puppets, like The Dark Crystal or Labyrinth. I mean, David Bowie was a special effect by himself.
Yeah.
Don't get me started on the pants. But the fact is that people like this sort of thing. There's a love for this, and it's like anything else. Why does something have to become obsolete because something cleaner came out? If we did that with art, we would have to throw away everything in the Louvre. The Mona Lisa, it's 2D. We don't like that. Throw it away. There's an art form. There's something to be said, like what Ben was talking about art. There's something to be said about taking your limitations and creating something awesome out of it, and that transcends anything else. And if you don't like it, then do something else. And I, like we were talking about, I just wish that some filmmakers wouldn't necessarily say no to those effects. I think they could learn something from the old people.
Yeah, I think you're right. Well, Okay. So actually, we're talking about movies right now. So.
You want to talk about any of the new movies that are coming out that you saw, maybe?
Yeah, Edge of Tomorrow. As I said, I saw that.
Did not see.
Yeah, that's with Tom Cruise. I thought that was an amazing movie. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I thought the storyline was clever. I'd heard, it's going to be like Groundhog Day, and I could see where the analogy comes from, but it really was. I thought a very clever storyline.
I saw it with a group of friends, and three out of my four friends were not Tom Cruise fans. I've never understood that phenomenon, but they don't like Tom Cruise. They went begrudgingly. They came out of it. They loved the film. So four out of four, and it's fascinating. It's fascinating to see that type of sci-fi film in this day and age, where it's a thinking film in the summertime.
It was a thinking. It was not just to shoot him. I mean, there was. Don't get me wrong. There was plenty of action things happening, but it was definitely a thinking film through it. And of course, Emily Blunt also. She's I mean, I first saw her in the Adjustment Bureau when I first saw her, but she's appearing in more and more films and sci-fi films, and I think she does a terrific job.
Oh, and she's not hard to look at.
No, there's that too. But
she was great in the Adjustment Bureau too. She's great in sci-fi.
Yeah, and Looper, and she was in. She did a really good. Does a really good job.
She was in Looper. Was she the one on the farm, the girl on the farm with the mother?
Yeah, that's Emily Blunt.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah, she's. Oh, you know what? I like her better now.
Yeah, it's a different look for her too. I mean, she looked more, natural, and the brown hair. I mean, she had a completely different look, but it was Emily Blunt, and I thought she did a very good job.
I'm so happy they let her keep her accent. She's got a great accent, and I don't like it when they make these great British actors and actresses. They make them speak American English, and it doesn't always come out right.
And then you see them on TV interviews and you go, what just happened? Because that's so disorienting for me. Because that's how you think they sound, and then they come up with this. I mean, my latest experience with this one, the guy who plays Spider-Man 2. He's British, and when they interview him, he's got this thick British accent. But of course, in Spider-Man, you don't hear it.
I think they think that it will draw more people in, but I think if you establish yourself with your accent at the beginning, people will accept. Like the Harry Potter kid, I see him in American films now, where he plays a kid in America. He's still got his British accent because people have accepted him.
Right.
That's his accent. And I feel speaking of CG movies, there's that one actor. His name's Sam Rockwell. He's Australian.
Oh, yes, I know. Yeah, I know.
And I wasn't a fan of him up until I saw the movie Sabotage. And Sabotage convinced me that he's got potential, but if you watch him when he plays his American accent in his early films, he's always falling out of it. It's like he loses his place. It sounds Australian. Just pick an accent and go with it, like Mel Gibson. Mel Gibson used to have an Australian accent. He got rid of it.
And they adopted as crazy.
That's interesting. People can get rid of their accents, like Charlize Theron. She's South African. She had a South African accent. She doesn't have it anymore. She just professionally dropped it.
You know who actually, had their accent and was just like, this is who I am, and I'm never changing it? He was cast in a role where he played a Spaniard.
Oh no, Sean
Connery. Played a Spaniard in Highlander.
And he still talked like Sean Connery.
And he talked like a Scotsman.
You know what? People would riot if Sean Connery was in a film and he did not have his accent.
Oh yeah.
He needs his accent. Everybody likes Sean Connery with his accent.
When he was the Russian captain on a submarine and
he still spoke like a Scotsman.
Spoke like a Scotsman. Yes.
You guys are gonna hate me for saying this, but he wasn't Scottish.
What?
I know, he was Welsh.
Welsh.
And the reason I know that is because I lost a bet about famous Welsh people, and it was him and it was Tom Jones.
Tom Jones, I was going to say.
Tom Jones, and and I lost the bet. I thought he was Scottish too.
Really? The more you know.
Yep. But he still keeps that accent. He never loses it.
The Hunt for Red October. He was Russian, but even when he was speaking Russian, he had this Scottish accent.
Oh, you should hear him in, what was that movie he did with Wesley? Rising Sun, where he spoke
Oh,
Japanese.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
he still spoke it with his. Everything was always the same with Sean Connery.
But he's a terrific actor. I mean, I caught him in an older picture called Finding Forrester. I thought he was.
Oh yeah.
That's a really, really good actor.
It's the one where he was the recluse writer.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, that was. I saw. Yeah, that was a great movie.
Yeah, very good. It didn't make big box office, but and it had some great actors in it too.
I'd like to see him come out of retirement for one good. I'd like to see him in the Expendables 4. Wheel him in a wheelchair, make him the badass. Him and Clint Eastwood sitting in a bar talking would be my idea of heaven. That would be fantastic.
At least it was still this. I mean, what was the last movie I saw? It was Trouble with the Curve, which is about baseball. Actually, that was a terrific movie. With I don't know if you saw that one, but he plays
with Justin Timberlake.
Yes, an aging baseball scout.
I didn't see it, but I wanted to see it. And Clint's got a new movie coming out very soon, a musical.
Really?
I'm not lying. He's not in it. He's directing it. He's directing a film version of the Jersey Boys.
Yeah. Yes, with Frankie Valli. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah, he's doing a lot of directing, but he still gets in. I think the last thing as I said, was The Trouble with the Curve, was the last movie that I've seen him in. But he's also a terrific actor.
You want to hear something funny? I didn't know this. It was for my birthday, and I think it was 2009. My friend treated me. We went to go see Gran Torino. It was either 2008, 2009. Gran Torino is the highest-grossing Clint Eastwood movie of all time.
Really?
Yep. And it's one of his worst-reviewed films.
Yeah, I saw it. I mean, I liked it. It was very human, and it had a sad ending, but
not for the kid. He got to drive away in his Gran Torino.
I know.
Well, Clint Eastwood sang.
Yeah, it says dies. So,
It was directed, starring, composed, scored.
Yeah, pretty much everything. Yeah.
Wow. I hope I'm that active when I'm in my late 70s.
Yeah. Yes. But so that's it for movies as far as I can say. I'm going to try to catch Godzilla this weekend. I'm going to try to catch it on Sunday. I catch a Sunday matinee, and I'm going to kind of catch up. And there's one other one that I probably will want to see, although I'm on the fence with it. Is the movie with Seth MacFarlane, the A Million Ways to Die in the West.
You better see it quick.
Why?
They're probably going to pull it from theaters.
Yeah, it's not doing well.
No, it died in the West.
Yeah. Well, if not, I'll catch it on HBO. It'll come around soon. Then
I think it'll play well. I mean, I think people are expecting another Ted.
Well, he's already agreed to do Ted 2. Do you know about that?
I think he needs to, especially after this bomb.
Is it a bomb, really? Oh.
Well, not only that, some of his shows have been canceled too. The Cleveland show was canceled. The American Dad has been moved off of Fox.
You're gonna make Ben sadly. You're gonna make Ben sad.
Yeah. And his show Dads. He had a show on Fox called Dads that was canceled.
Dads was awful. Yeah,
I think we're McFarland out a little bit. I think give it a break. Oh, and he is producing a new show, by the way. I just saw this with Patrick Stewart. Patrick Stewart is it Showtime or Stars? Patrick Stewart will play an alcoholic lawyer or therapist. And it's being produced by McFarlane, who, of course, everyone might not know, but he produced the Cosmos special with Neil deGrasse Tyson on Fox.
Yeah.
So yeah, he's an interesting guy. So
he does. He seems to be quite diversified. He's able to do all these different things. But yeah, he's going to have Ted 2. You think Ted 2 will be as good as Ted 1?
I don't know. It's Ted. What made Ted so funny was just how perverse it was. How disgusting it was. But it was heartfelt. And that's the thing about comedy. There's a trailer. I don't know if you guys have seen it, but they just released a trailer this morning for the next Dumb and Dumber film.
Yeah, I saw that. I saw that.
Dumb and Dumber 2, T.O.
T.O.
And you won't find a bigger Dumb and Dumber fan than me. I know I'm not supposed to say it, but that's actually one of my top 5 favorite movies of all time.
Oh my God! Really? Okay.
For personal, look, you can't choose your parents. You can't choose your favorite films. They choose you. And for reasons that are personal and private, that movie has a special place in my heart.
Okay. Well.
And the second film doesn't look any good, and I hope it is. I'm holding out, but the Farrelly brothers have had just a train of garbage the last 10 years, and I'm hoping I'm hoping this is not one of them.
Well, a lot of people point out that the original trailer for Dumb and Dumber, the original commercial that came out for it, didn't show any of the funny scenes, and everyone thought it was going to be awful when it first hit theaters. So everyone's hoping that this trailer is kind of along the same lines.
I hope so, because I mean it had some funny parts, but did you see the trailer, Ben?
I did.
You know the grandma gag at the end?
Yeah, that was a little over the top for me.
That was pushing it. That was pushing, or the catheter joke at the beginning.
Yeah.
But you know what? That little scene when they showed Jim Carrey catatonic in the wheelchair, that was funny.
Yeah.
That was really funny.
It's like for 20 years.
We'll see. Jim Carrey needs a hit pretty badly, so.
Yeah, he hasn't had one in a while, but he's a talented actor. I mean, he had some great films in his repertoire.
I think he's gonna have a good long career in motion capture when the looks fade.
Yeah. Well,
he's getting older though, so I don't know if he can pull off all the motion capture that he did in the old days.
This is technology. We can, if we don't have Jim Carrey, we can build one. We'll use Craig's mathematical properties, and we'll build an artificial Jim Carrey.
Yeah, exactly, and look just like him too, and sound just like him.
Well, Michael Jackson just danced the other day online, so anything's possible.
What is with that? I mean, it's getting so good that you just can't tell.
But did you see that hologram of Michael Jackson?
No, I did not see the hologram of him. No.
That is everything that is right and everything that is wrong. Because if you're a fan of Michael Jackson, Michael Jackson fans come into two groups: obsessive, crazy people, and everyone else. And if you watch that performance, you can tell it's fake. You can just tell the head movements aren't right. But it's close. They're getting closer,
Did you see the one with the horse, where the horse starts dancing? The dancing horse. What was it?
What are you talking about?
Dancing horse.
The dancing horse. They use CGI. The dancing horse.
The only dancing horse I know is on Craig Ferguson, and that's not CGI.
Oh no, it's not CGI. No, there's a dancing horse. Your mom actually put me onto that little dancing horse.
You're talking about that commercial, and it's like you visit Scotland. And it's like a little Shetland pony just dancing.
Yeah, exactly. And then you look, the guy looks away and he starts dancing and does the moonwalk and he's doing all these things. And then the guy turns around. Huh?
I was going to say, I hope that's CG, that poor horse. Like a Russian bear being tortured.
Yeah, no, they just used so much peanut butter that they skipped talking and moved on to dance.
Jesus. Interpretive dance.
Exactly. All right, well, listen, you're listening to the Computer America Show, and Nathan Evans is here with us, editor of popzara.com. You can check it out at our show notes at computeramerica.com, today's show, and we've got Nathan. He's substituting for Sandy Berger, who was called away in a family emergency. Will be back with us next month. We wish her well. And let's see what's coming up here. Oh, yes, and now we don't have we have our Computer America contest. I'll talk about that in the next hour as well. But we've got more things to talk about. We're going to talk about E3. We had Grayson Hamilton on last night talking about it, but evidently there's more stuff that we can talk about E3. I guess always stuff to talk about with games, right, Ben? Yeah.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Absolutely. So and Ben's got some interesting news stories too that we'll talk. And of course, any computer news that we do, of course, in the second hour is brought to you by Slimware Utilities, the official optimization software of Computer America. You can visit them at slimwareutilities.com to clean, speed up, and optimize your Windows system for free. Everything at the slimwareutilities.com website is absolutely free. It's not a freemium model. You don't have to upgrade it. It's the full version. Download all of them at slimwareutilities.com. You'll be very happy that you did. We use them here at the Crossman household. They're very effective. Download all of them, and you'll be very happy that you did, and you'll thank us for it, for putting you onto it. Okay. All right. What are some of the stories? I haven't had a chance to look at them. I know you sent them to me, Ben, but I haven't had a chance.
What are some of the stories? Good question. I know I put one in there about how HP is going to revolutionize the way computers think and work. So that's might be overhyped.
Well, what did you think about that printer that Marty Winston talked about. You know,
Oh yeah, no, well, was that so much the printer or the service of the ink that sends you a new one?
Yeah, it detects when your printer ink is running low and then sends you more ink.
Big data strikes again. Good for them.
Yeah, exactly. All right, all those stories and more coming up in hour 2 of the Computer America Show. You're listening to us on the Blog Talk Radio Network, on the Boost Radio Network, on the IRN Radio Network. We're just going to pause for a few moments and back with another hour of Computer America. Stay with us.
Broadcasting live, it's the only national radio talk show on computers to air every weeknight. Computer America, hosted by national columnist Craig Crossman. The first hour is behind us, but there's still more of tech news, tech talk, and your phone calls. We're being beamed nationwide at ComputerAmerica.com. You got computer problems? Bring them on. You're listening to Computer America. Computers run the world, and we run computers. Call us or send us an email to live@computeramerica.com.
Hello and welcome into hour 2 of the nation's longest running, nationally syndicated radio talk show on computers. This is the Computer America Show, and I'm your host, Craig Crossman.
And I'm your co-host, Ben.
And welcome into the second hour of the show. And, of course, with us, filling in for Sandy Berger, who had called away in a family emergency, is Nathan Evans, managing editor of PopZera magazine. And we're just kind of all over the road. So you kind of hinted that PopZera.com is getting a huge facelift. You're making some big changes. What are you doing there?
Well, I figure if CG can make Michael Jackson alive again, that maybe it'll help us. No, it's been a long time coming. The site has been in stasis, cryogenic stasis, for the last month, and while that's been happening, we've been moving everything to our new home, and trying to make sure that it's relatively bug-free. But we're trying to make sure that it's relatively stable. We're hoping to relaunch here in the next week or so, and that would be fun. And it's been a long time coming, and we've had a lot of nice support, and it'll be interesting because it'll be the first time since we've launched that we'll have modern toys to play with. We've never had that before. We've always sort of made do with sticks and glue. So
now I understand that Grayson Hamilton, who's one of our correspondents and has been for some time here at Computer America, is coming over is going to be on PopZera as well. Is that true?
Yes, he lost a bet, and so we've got him now. No, it's Grayson and I have been working behind the scenes for a couple of weeks now, and he's a talented, very talented individual. And like I was saying, we have a very similar ideology about how things are, and although he's a lot more likable than I am, so I can't wait to set him loose with a bunch of brand new tools. It'll be very interesting. I think he's a lot of potential, and if he's listening to this, keep that in mind when I get a little rough with you. But no, he's a very good guy, and I'm glad to know him. And thank you for helping make the introduction.
Yeah, my pleasure. I mean, he does some very, very good work. He's very good at what he does. That's why we have him here as our gamer correspondent. Now, we have him as our gamer correspondent. I don't know if that's pigeonholing him, but he does that extremely well. And are you going to be using him for other things other than gaming reviews, or are you going to use him primarily for gaming reviews?
Well, it depends. What's funny about that is that you listen to Grayson. He's got a voice for radio. His voice is definitely DNA imprinted for radio. Yeah. And if you've talked, and no offense, Craig, if you've talked to a bunch of people, a lot of people in radio have to, they're unlike television broadcasters. They're not just reading teleprompters. They have to think on their feet, and they have to be inquisitive. And Grayson has that. But his voice sounds so broadcast that I think it'll be a little disarming to certain people who aren't expecting him to be something more than he is, and that will be fantastic. So if anybody's listening to this show, stop listening, because I don't want to give you away any trade secrets. But no, who knows where it will lead to? I mean, I think for now I'm gonna respect his wishes to do gaming, simply because it's such a what's the word? It's such a disorganized genre of journalism. Mm-hmm. There hasn't been any emergent superstars. There's been very few people have been able to break into the mainstream. If you look at newspapers like USA Today, if you read New York Times, the gaming thing has been it's shuttled off. Even though it's a multi-billion-dollar industry that rivals Hollywood, mm-hmm. It doesn't get front page. Unless something happens, it doesn't get on the entertainment section. It's still treated like a child's toy.
Yeah.
And so go on Google News. If you type Google News right now, you won't find gaming news and entertainment. You'll find it under tech. It's still considered tech. Even though you have artists from Hollywood, you have digital artists, musicians, all this, they don't consider it entertainment. They consider it technology. And I think there's definitely room to improve, and I think there's a lot of work that Grayson can do to help that.
Well, gaming, it only makes the news whenever it breaks into another thing. Whether a movie star jumps into it and then they start a video game, or you have some video game broke a huge monetary milestone. It's like this game just sold $1 billion worth of copies. Unless it breaches another form of news, doesn't matter what it is, it really doesn't get front page. And
No.
even though you're right, it's a huge market.
You're 100% correct, Ben. And there is not a day that goes by that my email box is not flooded with press releases. You see, a lot of the people in the gaming press, they look at that and they think, I have to reprint this, because it's sort of a quid pro quo. They think, you reprint my press release and I'll send you a, in quotes, free game. The problem about most gaming journalists, and even the ones I admire, they're not equipped to do objective reporting. They're just not. They're fans who want to talk about their favorite thing, and that's fine. But what happens is, and I know we've talked on the show about this before, I know especially with Ben, is that they don't understand that it's not quid pro quo, that there's so much interplay between the publishing arm of the game industry and the so-called journalism side. They don't have any room to breathe. That's why
Ray fits that very well. I mean, he discerns between that. He's not necessarily a fan. I mean, he certainly enjoys them, but he's gonna. You don't get that from him.
Exactly. It's actually quite surprising, to be honest with you, because I'm so used to not hearing that. I know this sounds awful, but when I talk to new people that are applying for positions with me or want some assistance, I'm so used to hearing, I love games, I want to play games. I never hear, I want to report on the industry. I want to talk with the people behind the scenes. I want to see how the cake is made. And that's fascinating, because that's what a journalist does. A journalist has to leave a lot of their passion at the door when they write about something in respect to being objective. Doesn't mean you can't be passionate.
And he does that.
Yes, he does. He's very good at it. And we talked to E3 the other day after the shows, and he and I disagreed on a lot of the analysis, but that doesn't make him incorrect or me correct. The fact that we could have a different conversation is fantastic, because you do not hear that. You hear, oh, Microsoft won or Nintendo won or this. Won what? It's not a competition. Nobody's got bets on this. It's the analysis of the presentation, how it applies. And his analysis, he actually changed my mind on a couple things. He did, and that's because I'm just not used to hearing it. When I'm not used to hearing analysis. I'm hearing to say, who did the biggest whiz-bang show, or who had the best presentation. And Ben, if you ever watch these presentations, you'll notice they're not for people. They're for marketers.
Oh yeah.
You hear things like, we have new IP, we've shipped 24 million to SKUs to retail markets. That's garbage. That has nothing to do with gaming. That's selling games. But when
and he pointed that out too last night. That was one of the points when he had.
That was Sony that did that.
They came. He said we didn't want him to hear that. He said he was first to point that out. And,
yep. He in our private conversation he was spot on. And I apologize. I haven't had a chance to listen to his performance yesterday. I had a pre-read engagement. I plan on downloading it after this.
Yeah.
But from our private conversation, his analysis was very good.
Well, since you haven't heard last night's show, I just got to tell you, I was on it. I was right about 99% of the time. Grayson was wrong about 35% of the time. So
and how do we calculate this percentage?
Whatever pops into my mind. And so just be prepared for that, where I'm going to outclass Grayson a lot.
Well, it's I know humility is a horrible thing, but
no. I never touch this stuff.
What do they say? Like 84% of statistics are made up.
Oh yeah.
But no, it's funny because people think if you have to be objective, that means you can't have fun. It's exactly the opposite. You enjoy the analysis. You enjoy it. When you're able to look at it with clean eyes and say, this. And one point that Grayson and I disagreed on, and I still disagree with him because we have different modus operandi, is that he claimed that Nintendo's show was a lot of filler, and it exactly was. He's right about that. is that I don't look at filler as a negative thing. You know, you have two corporate giants like Microsoft and Sony trying to push out as much corporate, you know, psychobabble as they can, because the hordes of spectators are going to repeat it. And you know what this happens is that they use words like IP and this game, and they'll go out and repeat it, and that gets them SEO traffic. That's what it's for. The Nintendo show, for example, didn't have anything like that. It wasn't even a presentation. They showed the president of Nintendo, the president of a multi-billion-dollar company, in a CG fight with the head of the Nintendo of America company. That's the most bizarre thing I've ever seen at E3. It really was. It was bizarre. I've never seen anything like that. I've been watching this show for 20 years. And you know what? It was fun. It was fantastic. It had no depth to it, but it was fun. And then they buttressed the whole show with animated shorts from Robot Chicken, which is funny because that show used to mock Nintendo. They used to poke fun at Nintendo. Yeah, and it's fantastic that they embraced that. But you know, but deep, you dig behind that and you realize this is a company that didn't have any third-party showing. It was no third-party, which is a market that drives industry leadership. Without third-party, you cannot dominate the industry, and Nintendo didn't have anything, nothing. And what's funny is, and that's why the two highlights of the show for me, Craig and Ben, where Microsoft pretty much acknowledged the Kinect is a failure and it's done with. And the sooner they moved on from that, the better. And I think everybody's going to be happier that they've discharged that $100 dead weight camera. You know, they even came out today with an acknowledgement that if you disconnect the Kinect from your Xbox One is more powerful. And now developers can make use of this extra power once they no longer a requirement. For example, the game Destiny is coming out, that new game by Bungie. It was slated to run at a lower resolution on the Xbox One until Microsoft lifted that Kinect requirement. The Xbox One now has more processing power, and now the game is running at a higher resolution. Microsoft admitting that no one wants the Kinect is good for gamers. It is good because it has held them back for 4 years. With Nintendo acknowledged they're Nintendo. This is a wacky, crazy Japanese company that's not going to change for anybody or anything. Where everyone else had sexy girls and hardcore gamers with neckbeards, Nintendo had two pudgy Japanese people playing with yarn. You know, draw your own conclusions. What company you like? I've never seen such a difference in presentation. And I said I've been watching this show for years. I have never seen such a difference in presentation. One isn't necessarily better than the other. This is the state of the industry.
Nintendo, one thing I actually got to pick about everything you just said. I agree, everything you just said, except the third party on Nintendo's part. When you say third party is required for success, Microsoft, Sony, they're big companies. They just provide the hardware and they let other people really focus on the software. Nintendo has so many of their own brands. You know, they have Pokemon, Zelda, Smash Brothers, Mario. They have so many of their own franchises. I don't think they need third party at all to succeed.
You're right. You're exactly right. They don't need third parties to succeed, but third party support is paramount for market dominance, is what I was saying.
Okay.
You cannot lead this industry if you cannot handle third parties. Nintendo's own history with that is horrendous. It's going back to the 80s where they were a monopoly. Go look up the story with them and the Nintendo Seal of Quality. They forced companies to be non-competitive. They were harangued for it. They had to stop that practice, which eventually led to a schism in support for Nintendo platforms, which drove everyone to Sony in 1994, and Sony became the market leader. And I do want to put one little piece of analysis, and you saw this at the show yesterday, is that Microsoft's not very good at third-party support either. They've never been very good at it. They've leveraged their billions to secure third-party support for the Xbox platform. They're no longer in that position. They do not have a one-year head start with a cheaper console. They are in a firm second to third place right now in the industry. And for Microsoft, second or third place is not acceptable. They need to be in a position of leadership. They are never going to get that back by using the old strategy. Hey, we're going to pay for an exclusive. Count the number of exclusives for Xbox One at E3. You'll need less than a hand. They're not there. They don't have the market share to demand it. They don't have the money to capitalize on it. Sony has so clearly taken the command of this generation of consoles. I don't know if that's going to change. And because of third-party support. It is a cheaper platform, although technically not cheaper anymore. They're base level now, but it's developer friendly. And Sony's experience with Columbia, with Sony Music, with with their various Columbia Records and different music corporations, they know how to deal with these companies. They know how to multi-finance and deal with that. Microsoft doesn't. They've never been able to do that. And they've always thought we could bully our way in. That's not a slur against Microsoft. It's a reality. You look back in 2014, which company do third parties prefer? Sony. In fact, they're elated that Sony is now the market leader again. It was never a good deal under Microsoft. There was a famous deal with the company Rockstar Games. Microsoft paid, it was revealed through corporate trade finances, that Microsoft had paid Rockstar tens of millions of dollars to keep software on Microsoft platforms. It sounds like a good idea. When Microsoft is offering you $20-something million, that's good. But in the long term, what had happened was Rockstar Take-Two had estimated they would lose tens more millions of dollars by taking this deal. They took it. They learned from it. It's not going to happen again. Microsoft will not command the market leadership through payola anymore. It won't happen, and that was evident at E3 last night. It's not going to happen. And going back to Nintendo, they have the biggest franchises in the world. They have the only evergreen franchises. They can survive. They'll be fine. They're sitting on a pile of money like Scrooge McDuck. They're not going in. They're not going anywhere. You know, as long as there's Mario and Zelda and Donkey Kong and Pokemon, they're fine.
Oh yeah. It sounds a lot like what Grayson said yesterday, but and of course we went into more specifics about the games and what they actually showed. But I mean, you saw E3. I mean, were you disappointed? Because I know I definitely wasn't.
I loved it because I wasn't there. When I'm watching it from afar, I love it because if you like E3, if you love watching E3, don't go to E3. You're uncomfortable. They shepherd you in buses. You have to the smell. Don't even get me started. But I'm watching it in high definition on my monitor while I'm relaxed in my air-conditioned room 1,000 miles away. I love E3 again, but as long as I'm not there. But as far as the show, I think this was a better show than last year. I think last year was a mistake. I think Microsoft focused way too much on a Kinect peripheral that nobody wanted. They focused too much attention on television and multimedia that never happened. Sony was out of the gate trying to prove themselves. Nintendo had a system that was logging. This year, all three companies focused on what this show is about: games. And they all did a good job in their own way. Microsoft a little shallow and corporate, Sony a little stiff and boring, Nintendo psychedelic and weird. And that's what you get out of it. I think if you're a fan of a company, you're going to come out of this thinking your company did very well, as it should be. So I think I'd score them. If I had to give a letter grade, I'd give probably Microsoft a B+. I'd give Sony a B+ A. I'd give Nintendo B+ A. Simply because they showed up and they did their job.
Now wait a minute. Let's see how those grades compare to Grayson's.
Let's see. Microsoft got an A- under him. Yeah. Sony got a B-, and Nintendo got a B+.
Yeah.
No, I think it was a good show. It was a good showing of software.
Yeah.
And frankly, that's you can't ask for more. I thought there were stumbles, and like I said, as an analyst, I can't watch this with virgin eyes. I know what they're doing. I don't like being talked down to. But if I'm just a fan and I'm looking at all the pretty graphics and I'm looking at that, I'm thinking to myself, hey, I have an Xbox One. There's plenty of stuff coming. If I have a Wii, I'm like, finally, there's something coming. And if I'm Sony, I'm set. I know it's coming. And so it was pretty good. It was about as good as you can get. I mean, it's not a bad show. And there have been bad shows. Microsoft has suffered plenty of them. So has Sony. Nintendo usually does a pretty good thing. They've always been the standout at E3. If you're familiar with E3, if you've ever gone or you talk to people who've gone, Nintendo's always the standout. That's sort of a given. Because there's not that marketing push the way there is with the other companies. There's not so much collusion. They're their own company. They do their own thing in their own way. They're very quirky. But if you like that, you like that. But if you're an analyst, you got to acknowledge it.
Well, okay. Anything else you want to mention about E3 before we move to some other topics here?
Yeah. What did Grayson say his favorite game of the show was yesterday? Did he mention?
Yeah, actually, he did. He talked about a couple of things. I think what really jazzed him was a game from he said imagining of a cult classic called Phantom Dust.
Mm-hmm.
He was really jazzed about that, and also he was a huge fan of something called Grim Fandango by Tim Schafer.
The remake.
They're remastering it, and he was thrilled about that. You know, I really was pleased about that.
Yeah, that's interesting. The Grim Fandango was a big surprise. They especially by what's his name again? You just said it, Ben.
Tim Schafer.
Tim Schafer. He's been something of a maverick the last couple of years. He's come back thanks to Kickstarter and all this. This guy has created I think he created Day of the Tentacle, and I think Monkey Island. Yeah. I know for a fact he did Beyond Good and Evil, and I think, but his last big attempt at a mainstream game was a flop. It was a big budget game that didn't go anywhere. It was called Brutal Legend, and it was starred Jack Black, and it was supposed to be this big success, and it wasn't. And
I liked it.
It was a funny game. It was funny.
I know it didn't do well. It didn't sell well, and it was a little bit on the wacky side. I liked it.
It's a cult classic, but it didn't help his career. And what happened? He sort of retreated and started going into indie games. I know the last game he released was something called The Cave, and it was even for that Ouya system. It's on iPhone, Android. It's on everything now, and it's a good game. But Grim Fandango. I'm hoping if he resurrects it, he keeps to the old, tongue-in-cheek style, because that was a good game. It deserves a wider audience. That would be interesting to see it come back.
Yeah. Also, he said the Uncharted 4, A Thief's End, he thought was also going to be really good too. Which
a lot of games. I was going to say a lot of games they show at E3. They're called I think they're called tech renders, where they're not actual gameplay. They just show a little tease, and it may or may not reflect the final game. It's just to get something, to whet the audience's.
I always assume whatever you see at E3 is about what you're going to see, unless they say, this is actual gameplay footage. What you see at E3 is what you'll see in a cutscene in the actual game.
Typically, yeah. They almost never show gameplay if they can help it, because gameplay looks boring when you're looking at it. But a cutscene with giant swords and giant eyes and giant other things, it looks great in a cutscene. But the most talked about cutscene was actually not a Microsoft or Sony game. The most debated game at the show turned out to be a Nintendo game, The Legend of Zelda, which is interesting because that was supposed to be their big reveal, and Nintendo demonstrated if we're going for power, Craig, the Wii U is not as powerful as the Xbox One or the PlayStation. It's technically last generation technology. We're looking at 8 to 10-year-old CPU, but they showed this game and it looks stunning. And there's debates raging online whether or not this is real time or not. And by all accounts, it seems to be real time, and Nintendo seems to have really got people's attention. Whether they buy it or not is different. But it's you didn't see a lot of talking about graphics at the show, because it's at this stage is sort of what we're talking about with the CG. It's sort of expected to be good. You expect games to look good. You don't expect to see pixels anymore or jagged edges. You're paying $400 or $500 for a console. Right. You want it to be clean. You're paying for that. You're not paying for a steak and getting a hamburger anymore. Oh. But Nintendo, Nintendo has been an interesting company because they're pretty much the only high quality developer for their own console. But like Ben was saying, Nintendo, if we're splitting hairs, Nintendo is the best game company in the world. I don't think anybody would make an argument against that.
Yeah.
And how they use technology is so different than anybody else. The other week, we were playing Mario Kart 8, the new Mario Kart, and we noticed that the game is running in 60 frames a second. It's running at 1080p. That's something that most PlayStation 4 games and Xbox One games don't do. But you look on the back of their boxes, and they brag about this. Look at all the technology we have. But a Nintendo game doesn't have any of that. It's secondary to them. All they care about is that there's colors on the screen. It's a very different attitude. It's very Mac and PC-like if you think about it. The way they approach it, and some people like it, some people don't. But they definitely got a rise out of the tech heads with the Zelda demo, and it was quite beautiful. if it's representative of the game, then you're looking at a game that technically could outdo Skyrim as far as being an open world exploration game. And that, putting the word Skyrim next to Zelda, if you're listening to this on the radio, you're probably, if you're a Nintendo fan, you just went to heaven. So no one ever thought about that, And the other thing, I don't know if Grayson mentioned, was that people forget that Nintendo's a Japanese company. That was very much on display. If you watch their presentation, they had Japanese yarn shops. They were people in dojos. It was very Japanese. Sony's a Japanese company, but you couldn't tell. Japan's economy is reflective of the game industry. This is an industry that was birthed in Japan in the 1980s, and it's not that way anymore. And it's very interesting. It was very interesting to see that cultural side where everything wasn't all anglicized, and it's I've never seen that before. Growing up, the European games were always on the side, and the Japanese games were first and foremost. Not anymore. Japan is now the outsider.
Well, I'll tell you. Of course, as I said, you can listen to the show we had with Grayson last night, and we archive all of our shows at blogtalkradio.com/computeramerica, so you can listen to them.
I wonder if right now at E3 you have the big keynotes, and that's Microsoft, Sony, Nintendo. I wonder if Steam's ever going to get into the mix, just for the PC side of it. And E3 is Electronics Entertainment Expo. And nowhere does it say it's only a console war expo. So
no.
I wonder if PC would ever get in there.
It is. It's there.
It is?
It's there. In fact, quite a bit of it's PC. In fact, most of the stuff you see is PC. Like, you'll see racks of PC servers when you're there. You'll also see iPhone, Android, mobile stuff. But if you're asking if Valve is going to do it,
yeah.
I don't see that happening. I don't think they're competent as a company.
Really?
Yeah, they've demonstrated that they don't understand the way the industry works enough to be a serious competitor. They've made such glaring mistakes, the way they've treated manufacturers, that I don't know if you've read, but they've delayed the Steam box by another year. That's usually a portent that it may or may not come out. But if you look at Gabe Newell and everything, this is a software company. See, another thing I was going to say, Craig, is that you watch these E3s for 20, 30 years or whatnot, and it was Japanese companies. Nintendo is the last game company. There are no more. It's the last game company from a long list of competitors that goes back to the 70s that got into the hardware business. You're looking at companies like Nintendo, Atari, Namco, Taito, Activision, all this. They are the last game company to sell software and hardware. Nobody else does it. And so they're very protective, and that's why you saw a big push towards toys like Aibo or whatever they call it.
The robotic dog?
I apologize. What is it called? Nintendo is now going to start manufacturing toys that are compatible with the game, sort of like what Activision does with Skylanders.
Okay.
Amiibo, that's what it's called, Amiibo.
Yeah, because Aibo was the Sony robotic dog.
But Sony had to put it down.
I owned one. I actually owned the first one. There was 1,500. I actually had one of the first Aibos, and spent a lot of money on them. But I recouped it because I finally sold them. Had the original box and everything. Somebody paid me the exact amount of money for it that I bought when it was new.
I remember that thing.
Yeah.
We took one of those fake piles of dog poop, and we glued like nuts and bolts onto it, and we spray painted it silver, and we put it in Craig's condo, so it looked like his robotic dog pooped.
That is funny. I remember my friend had an Aibo, and they're a lot more impressive when other people own them.
Yeah. but
that's interesting. Like I said, it's interesting to see how the companies have evolved from that. And can Steam? You're asking if Valve can show that? No, they're just not equipped for that. And unless something drastic changes in their organization, they're able to compile and create a market share. But the system with the Steam box isn't conducive to that.
Yeah.
It's at the best they can have a presentation, like Ubisoft or EA. But as a console manufacturer, no, they're just not. They're not that type of company.
Yeah, I think you said it best when they're a software company. I mean, they're the biggest seller of games, but they definitely shine in the software department. So,
when you say the biggest seller of games, though, What are you talking about? Sales?
Sales, like number of sales. Yeah.
But that's actually a bad thing for the industry to have a number of sales that are that high. Because what happens is those sales don't come from new software; they come from discounted software. So, for example, if a game comes out like Darksiders 2, the game is budgeted to sell so many at such and such a price. The game sells moderately well on console, but when it comes to Steam, it sells for $5.
Yeah.
The game has to be sold at a loss, so it can sell 5 million and still be considered a financial failure.
All right, you're listening to the Computer America Show on the Blog Talk Radio Network and the Boost Radio Network and the IRN Radio Network. Nathan Evans is here with us, managing editor of PopZero.com magazine. We're going to continue on with him. We've got another news tips bulletin with Marty. We'll be right back.
This is a special alert to all Americans who own a vehicle with less than 120,000 miles with an auto warranty about to expire or no warranty coverage at all. Due to a decline in the economy and your car companies filing for bankruptcy, Cover America Auto Care has announced revolutionary, inexpensive mechanical breakdown coverage that is now available to the general public to save consumers thousands on auto repairs. An open phone line has been established for drivers to call who own a vehicle that is less than 10 years old for a free 5-minute quote and to see if you qualify. The number is 800-483-2514. Drivers who are covered with this auto protection will not have to pay for a covered repair again. This is the auto coverage now sweeping across America at a fraction of what dealerships charge and is now available to the public by calling today. The number to call is 800-483-2514. 800-483-2514. That's 800-483-2514.
Don't complain about your cable bill going up and up and up. Do something about it. Grab a pencil and jot down this special number. 1-866-663-MY-TV. The more cable TV rates go up, the better digital satellite TV looks. So, disable the cable and get more of your favorite channels in 100% digital quality for less money. Call 1-866-663-MY-TV right now to sign up for packages starting as low as $19.99 and up to 4 rooms. And there's no equipment to buy. That includes your free HD TV upgrade, your free DVR upgrade, and your free professional installation. And the best part, the pristine digital picture and sound. Call 1-866-663-MY-TV. So, what are you waiting for? Pull out your major credit or debit card. Call 1-866-663-MY-TV. 1-866-663-MY-TV. Disable the cable, cut costs, and get more. Call 1-866-663-MY-TV. 1-866-663-MY-TV.
Hi, this is Marty Winston for Computer America with a news tips bulletin review of something that just came in a package from Stockholm. It was the DeGauss Labs Pocket Couture in-ear 3-button Android headset. The earpods wear little rubbery hats. So overall, they are sitting more completely inside the ear canal than most earbuds. They are sensitive. A headset can drive them to really too high sound levels. When they're overdriven, they distort a little, and a wise or wary user can take that as a sign of hearing under threat. The sound reproduction is good, but less than audiophile. The best headphones step out of the way of listening, but these always seem to make their presence known. It's compromise for perfectionists, but not a big deal for most people. The mic side is more of a compromise. When we called our landline voicemail, the audio quality was a bit muffled. Not unintelligible, but not remarkably clear. Bottom line, most Android mobile gear users will find the DeGauss Labs Pocket Couture in-ear 3-button Android headset a satisfactory choice. This is Marty Winston at the News Tips Bulletin for Computer America.
Welcome back to the Computer America Show. 33 minutes past the 11th hour of the night. And we are doing, I don't know, Wednesday Madness, I guess is it still called?
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah, we're doing Wednesday Madness.
Why not?
Yeah. And we have Mr. Nathan Evans here with us. And we just, I mean, I don't have anything else to say about E3, so I'm going to say we finish up on E3.
We'll finish up on E3.
Sure.
Okay.
Okay.
Done.
We are done.
So going on from there, unless anyone else has a topic.
I wanted to ask Nathan. I've been obviously Apple's been in the news a lot, and I just saw this story from Apple Computer that's saying that they're finally This October they're going to come out with an iWatch, and I'm just kind of yeah, they're going to.
Are we back to that again?
Yeah, we're back to that again.
Yeah.
They're gonna. I've been holding out ever since I flushed my watch down the toilet accidentally, and I've been waiting because I was looking at the Moto 360 and I said, I'm gonna probably get that this summer because. And then they made the announcement, nope, October we're going to introduce the iWatch along with the new iPhone 6. What do you think? Have you seen any of the things they're talking about? What it's going to do? Have you had any input on that at all?
I don't think anybody knows anything. I think we're in another round of let's make things up and let's make some clickbait. It's because Apple clickbait is better than Samsung clickbait. We've seen this. In the last year, Samsung's brought out 2 Galaxy Gears. Sony's brought out 1. Motorola has 1. Everybody wants to rush, but nobody's buying these things. There's no market for it.
So why do you think Apple's going to come out with it if you think there's no market with it?
I don't. I don't see any sign that they are.
Yeah.
It's entirely made up. They might come out with one, but it's all speculation and guessing. There hasn't been any movement. There's been no, like, when you look at what a real analyst does, and I read some of the sources. They'll look at the production lines. They'll look at the manufacturing. They'll look at what Apple's patented, what they've copyrighted. Have they patented technology for wearable tech?
Yeah, no. and that's the thing. That's what the story was that we did. This is a news story like about 3 days ago that we reported.
See, you guys say all this, and here I am. I'm on eBay right now. I just Googled iWatch. And here I am on eBay, and you can pre-order an Apple iWatch for $1,500. There's only 5 available, but you can get it.
Does Apple know about this?
I don't think the seller knows about this either. This is, they just took like the stock Google photo that you get of the artist's rendition of what it would look like, but the seller has 100% positive feedback, so let's just get one.
You can trust that. That sounds pretty solid to me. Well, it's funny because I think there was a country where I forget what country it was, but Apple or AT&T is no longer allowed to use the word iPhone in advertising because another company already had a similar trademark for iPhone. And a lot of that has to go into the planning. Most perilously last year, Microsoft had a little egg on their face when they released OneDrive. You remember that? Or they released the interface for Windows 8. It's called Metro. Turns out they didn't have the rights to use those terms, so they had to change it. SkyDrive became OneDrive, and Metro became Modern Interface. Very boring, but people still call it Metro, and they still call it SkyDrive. But, and I've seen no movement towards Apple against that. They could do it, but let's be fair. Apple's been leakier than the Titanic the last 2 years. We know what the iPhone 6 is going to look like months before it comes out. These leaks have been accurate. We've seen nothing on an iWatch, nothing. And we've seen no leaks, no schematics, no nothing. And Apple just wouldn't release a watch and say, here, buy my watch. There's a whole secondary ecosystem that springs up around these things, carrying cases, batteries, whatever. And again, there's been nothing. And so is Apple going to do it? At this point, maybe. Maybe not. When we do it, it probably won't be like the Samsung watch. It probably won't be like Pebble or what Sony's doing or Motorola.
No.
It could be anything. I thought they were going to release a new Apple TV this summer myself because all signs pointed to that. But again, I truly believe that 90% of Apple news is completely fraudulent. I think it's made up to generate clicks because people like clicking on Apple. They just do. It's an easy, it's low-hanging fruit.
Well, maybe I just might have to buy a Moto 360 after all.
What's fun about Motorola is that Motorola Mobility was purchased to great fanfare by Google a couple years ago, and Google was going to position them to be their hardware manufacturer, and they made a big stink because it was a political year that Moto X is going to be manufactured in Texas. It's going to be made in America. Now we learn that factory is going to be shut down. It's because nobody bought the watch. And you can pander to people all you want, but at the end of the day, if nobody wants your product, you're not selling any watches. And so I don't know if there's a market for wearables. There may not be one. You're talking about...
They have to be something that we can do every day. They have to be slick, not these bulky brick things that, and awkward. It has to be something that's That's one of the things I liked about the Moto 360. It's coming out this summer. I mean, it looks like a watch.
Looks like a Sennheiser. Yeah, it looks nice.
It's thin. It looks like a watch, but the whole thing is a touchscreen. But it looks like an actual analog watch face. You can pick different faces, of course. But when you look at photos of the thing, it looks like a watch. But then when you tap it, it'll give you all the information and go from there. So
we hope. The videos that came out turned out to be fake. It turned out to be a render. It was a concept video. Yeah. So the actual watch, we don't know what it's going to look like. We know what a render is going to look like. We know what the base is going to look like. Mm-hmm. But let's be fair. Is Motorola a company known for their software? Are they known for making interfaces?
Nope.
Are they known for this? And to be fair, the only thing that Motorola has been known for in the last 2 years is being tossed around between companies. And, like I said, I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt, but I'm going to wait to see what Apple does because, frankly, I think the industry could have done the same. It's everyone's rushing to fill a vacuum that's just not there. They have to make you want to buy a watch, and selling it for $300 and requiring a $1,000 cell phone and then changing the operating system and changing everything. This is not how you launch a product. Samsung will go down in history as one of the worst product launchers of all time. They really screwed the pooch. I'm not trying to be critical on Samsung, but their strategy for the Galaxy Gear was one of the worst product launches I've ever seen. If you can name what's that?
I was going to say that, it's kind of funny that everyone's trying to fill you said, fill a need that isn't there. The fact that, when smartphones came out, people stopped wearing watches. Like, watches became a fashion statement and no longer a necessity. Like, the sales of watches, I'm sure you can find graphs out there, went down dramatically after everyone had a smartphone. So the fact that they're trying to push this is...
I don't understand that because, look, I'm a guy who's worn a watch for most of my life, and I tell you, it's been traumatic ever since I flushed mine down the toilet. And I find myself, when I need to look at the time, I've got to go dig out my phone, power it up for a moment there to see what time it is. I put it now in my shirt pocket so I can, like here, I can just tap it and look at the time. But it's still not as convenient just looking at my wrist, and I miss that. And
you're making the opposite point I was.
What? Which was what?
That smartphones are eliminating the need for watches, and you're saying that even though you have a smartphone, you're saying that you still want a watch.
Yeah, I still need a watch because
I have a watch.
When I'm driving or whatever, I just find it more convenient to look at my wrist for a moment.
Okay, well then it's the sub whatever Nathan's age group is. That group.
No, Ben is 100% right. Most of my friends are under 30, and I asked them. I said, "Well, how come you don't wear a watch?" They say, "Oh, I have my smartphone." And every time I ask them, I kind of dick with them. Ben, I say, "Well, what time is it?" Because I know they got to reach in their pocket, they got to pull it out, and I said, "Oh, I'm sorry, I've already looked at my watch."
See,
watch is a
see, I wouldn't even do that. I would just lie to you, and and that.
Well, my Google Glass tells me it's 8 o'clock.
Or if you're standing in front of if you're standing in his presence, say, "What time is it?" Well, he can't lie to you. He's gonna have to go dig for a second. I just look at my watch. I know the time. The point is, it is more efficient to have it on your wrist. And I like the time and the day and the date. That's what I used to do, and it would tell me all those three things.
What kind of nuclear launch codes are you two in charge of that you need a to-the-second, predictable, easy-to-read time?
No,
when you're busy, you got to know where things are. You can forget, and.
Yeah, you can. How many times I've been sitting at the dinner table and I realize
and you still forget everything. I know it's crazy.
I don't have to watch. If I had to watch, I could do it. But I feel like every time I pull out my smartphone to look at it, I feel like, oh gosh, they don't think I'm interested in what they're saying. Whereas my watch, you can kind of look at it and.
But you're not. Yeah, when you're looking at your smartphone, you're looking at stuff you don't want. You're looking at the weather and everything. You just want the time. You just want a quick reference to the time.
And maybe the date, date. I want to know what day of the week it is and the date.
I think it's a generational thing, Craig, and I think I'm not. You're only about 3 years older than I am. You're what, 42?
Thank you.
But but the thing is, we grew up with less distractions. You more so than mine. You didn't have all these distractions. You had single devices. You had a tape player that played tapes, a record player that played records, a TV that watched TV, a computer that could type basic codes. I'll just say this: if anyone does basic, 10 go to 30. If then go to. But I did basic on my Commodore 64. It made me realize. Yeah,
I love basic.
It made me realize I'm not a programmer.
I taught basic for a number of years, as a matter of fact. Yeah.
I had that big. I used to subscribe to Compute's Gazette, and they would have all those lines of code in the back, and you spend 10 hours hitting basic codes, and then to have a ball bounce on the screen.
Yeah.
And it's so different now.
I did so many for my computer science. I had 2 projects that I had to do. They had to be what are they called? They were projects that you had to do independent of class and to independent study projects. And one of them was I actually wrote a piece of code for my Apple II so I could interface with the university's UNIVAC system, so I could do my work and everything without having to go down to the terminal room or anything. It was unheard of, but I went ahead and did that. The teacher loved that project, by the way. And then the second thing I did was we had a simulation course on GPSS, which is a simulation language that's very graphical, and it was used for things like traffic intersection monitoring so what I did is I wrote a piece of program code that would actually graphically, even though it was written in code, but you use graphics. I actually had the graphics generator on my Apple II simulate a GPSS simulation, which was really cool. So,
and all this while fighting the Nazis in World War II. I'm impressed.
I love the Apple II. I remember programming pixel by pixel some of the graphics.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. And you could do that. But the point is, what is the point?
The point is, Craig has a broken go-to 10.
I will. Here's a little trivia for you because I know all this useless trivia. Are you guys familiar with Douglas Adams?
Yes, of course.
Douglas Adams was a computer nerd before it was fashionable, and we talked about this artificial intelligence and the Turing test.
Mm-hmm.
He was actually one of the most important people because here's a man who wrote Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy as a radio show. Mm-hmm. Eventually, he decided to write the novel, and then once he was finished with the novels, he was a computer programmer. He was a computer nerd, gigantic computer nerd. He was the first person in all of England to own an Apple. The second being Stephen Fry, which is his own trivia. But anyway, he wrote a game that was impossible to beat. He wrote a interactive version of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. He did. If you play that game, that's Douglas Adams, and it was so obtuse. You play it, and it's written in language that you can read. It's like you're reading a book. But it's still computer code. And here we are in 1985, and they just had the anniversary for it. You can actually play the game in its entirety for free if you look it online. They reproduced the whole thing, and it's impossible to play. Pick up hair dryer. Can't pick the hair dryer up because your feet are wet. Things like that. It's computer language, but it sounds like you're talking to a person.
I'm gonna have to check all this. You have to send me some links, Nate, so I can look at this stuff.
Sure, it's fascinating stuff, and it's fascinating.
It is, and I certainly love it. So you have to send me some links so I can go look at all these things.
And people forget that something like that started as a radio program. So who knows where Craig will be in 10 years? He'll write the next bestseller called Computer America Across America. With Ben as a sidekick you're on one of those. Motorcycles, one with a little side caddy, and you just, we're in the. I think it's what do they call it? Indian motorcycle? Is that it? And
yeah.
You're zooming across the Arizona.
Yeah, wearing the leather cap and the goggles.
Yep, it's a road show.
Exactly.
Going to CES.
So so Ben, I don't know if Ben really understands. I think he does. I think he just likes the fact that a watch is just more effective. It's just more.
You say it's effective. I have big fat pockets that I can slip my fat little hand into and pull it out, press one of the little side buttons on an iPhone, and look at the time and slip it back, and it has a date right underneath it. Wait, and slip it back into my pocket. It's all muscle memory nowadays. It takes me 2 seconds. The difference in between flipping your wrist and looking at a watch and taking the phone out of the pocket, looking and putting it back in is literally negligible to my calorie intake. If you're struggling for calories, that flipping your wrist and taking your phone out is causing you problems, eat some potato chips.
It's not even that. It's less than a fraction of a second. All the things that you have to go through to get that the smartphone on powered up.
I said that again. Takes 4 seconds, maybe.
4 seconds. Yeah, 4 or 5 seconds. If you're driving, that's that enough.
If I'm driving, I have a built-in car. I know you love your jalopy and you have to wind it up before you start driving, but we have this thing called the car stereo that has a time right on it.
Yeah, I'm starting to use that, which I never used before because I had a watch.
You know what, Craig? I think Ben's right. His generation, when you said muscle memory, Ben, that's the phrase. They don't think of the watch anymore because I don't think they spatially think the same way.
No, they don't.
They don't have to recall because you don't have to go home to make a phone call anymore. You don't have to go home to check your email. You literally have your computer in your pocket, so there's less need for you to be aware of where you're at.
Yeah, I guess so. And it has GPS.
I mean, like I was learning technology when that was still the case. When phones were still dumb. Cell phones were just about coming out. And I was still learning that kind of thing, but they weren't smartphones. But I mean, it's proven that kids today, their brains are getting rewired. When they learn, and when you learn with technology, it's different than when you learned, with, reading from a book and having instructions.
You become dependent on it.
But we bought you a watch when you were a kid, and you had it.
And I wore a watch all the time, but I don't need one anymore.
Then we got you a pocket watch.
And I still do have a pocket watch. But the pocket watch is a fashion statement. It's not a necessity.
No.
It will be interesting, Craig, to see how the marketers create a need for a watch. All it takes is the one celebrity bling in his watch, or the right singer bling in his watch, and suddenly people will start watching it. It'll become fashionable again, like all things. It will become fashionable, like bell bottoms. Who would ever thought those things would come back? Yeah. And now people wear bell bottoms again.
It happened with Dr. Dre and Beats Audio and the giant over here. I mean, everything about ear technology, sound technology, everything was leading to earbuds and how great these earbuds were. And then Dr. Dre came out with these overpriced, over-the-ear headphones, and then all of a sudden, over-the-ear headphones were the big thing again.
And now Apple bought them. Apple owns them now. So maybe the iWatch is actually the ear watch, or the iEar, where you can control your iPhone through your headphones.
Oh my God.
Craig, would you like that?
It would. I mean, who knows? I mean, the fact of the matter is, we're basing all our guesswork on what other companies have done. And see, and if I can wrap this up real quick, when you're talking about how they have instruments that automatically account for mistakes, even the best accounting for mistakes are still artificial. They can't predict new mistakes. They can't predict what somebody might. They may say, okay, well, this guy did half a second wrong. They can't predict how someone may extend it a second. There's certain variables that can't be adjusted because they haven't been invented yet. The best a computer can do right now is mimic what's already been done. It can't necessarily predict what hasn't. And when it comes to Apple stories and everything, everybody says that Apple should do this, Apple should do that. But the fact of the matter is, no one knows what Apple's going to do till Apple does it. Apple could bring out a product that is horrible and fail, or they could bring out a product that's going to change the world. But I'm hoping if they do an iWatch, it's a lot better than the crap that Samsung and Sony and everybody else has put out, because I think it's turning people like Ben into believers that these iWatches are not useful.
Or just a watch is not useful.
I go to Walmart. I buy my watches for $10 because
I can't tell you how many times I've been tempted to do that, and I still may. I think at this point, if I can't get a Moto 360 or Apple doesn't have an iWatch, that's then I'll probably just go get myself a Timex or something.
Well, you know what?
Tired of.
I go to the gym. I need my watch because I have to count my sets and I have to count this. There's no way on earth I'm bringing a $400 smartwatch into the gym with me.
No.
It'll be a $400 piece of dust when I'm done with it. It's because I bang my watch in the gym. I'm always stepping on it. It falls off. It's pretty rugged. For $10, you get a pretty good watch. But I'm not bringing a piece of electronic gadgetry into the gym with me.
Yeah, Timex, it takes a licking and keeps on ticking.
You say that about a piece of technology, but go to the whenever I go to the gym, it's just, as you can see, very frequently and very often for very long.
People are always taking selfies, aren't they? And listening.
They're taking selfies, and they have the upper arm one that they wear their smartphone on, and they use it as a music player. Some of them have apps that control their sets. Keep going until your phone buzzes.
That's terrible.
They're using them though. They don't need them, as you can see, as you do. You don't need them, but people are using them though.
I know, but I don't like the idea of just advocating all of our minute control over to apps. I don't, I think part of the reason you don't have a watch, Ben, right, is because you don't have to. You don't have to calculate where you are spatially. You have access to everything. It's why you don't use it. You probably don't carry a calculator either, although there's one on your smartphone.
Very true.
And it's hard. We don't have to remember stuff because we don't have to. Where am I at? Well, Foursquare will tell me. How do I get somewhere? GPS will tell me. My brain doesn't have to do any calculations anymore because there's apps that do everything for me. Mm-hmm. And when I go to the gym, and I got to tell you, I actually draw the line at the health things. I've said this before. I probably on the show. I said I think in the end a lot of these will turn out to be a little dangerous because they're using flawed barometers of health like BMI and everything. People obsess. Oh, I got to lose 5 pounds. Well, you've lost 20 calories. There's no way to accurately measure that without a blood test or without a certain test. And I think I see people overreacting in the gym with those apps. And I hope they get it right. But for me, I'm not bringing a $400 watch because I'll destroy it. I'm too clumsy. I'm an idiot when it comes to that sort of stuff.
The great Albert Einstein once said, why do I have to remember that? It's written down in a book. I can just go look it up.
You talking about his bow and arrows?
Yeah, I don't know, whatever. Someone said something along those lines. He was very smart.
He gave a speech in 1947. He said, see, how do I know this? He said, in 1947, 1945, and he said, the modern man thinks themselves superior to primitive man because of our ability to use technology. But how many of modern man could make a bow and arrow or hunt or cook their own food? In this way, the primitive man he didn't say this, I'm paraphrasing, he said, has an advantage because they can grasp the world. They can create the world. Whereas modern man is so dependent on technology. If the grid were to go down, we'd two things. We'd starve to death, cannibals, or the zombie apocalypse. Maybe all three. Maybe all three. But no, but I mean, seriously, if the grid went down, I admit I'm done for. I couldn't survive.
Oh, yeah, me too.
I would either kill myself or become one of the slaves like in Mad Max.
Oh yeah.
I'm not becoming a slave, but we couldn't survive, and so much of humanity would simply perish because they become so dependent on this complex proliferation of technology.
Yeah.
I mean, think about the water system, for example. The water system purifies water for us. How many lives has that saved just by purification? Look at malaria, things like this. I mean, how many of us could create a penicillin or create a vaccine to stop polio? We couldn't do that. We don't even know how to do that.
Moldy bread.
I worked in a place that made cancer medication and made pharmaceuticals for every walk of life. I don't know how any of that stuff worked, and I worked there for a year.
Hey, you could probably walk into a Burger King and not know how that stuff is made.
Yeah, totally.
It's so complex. We think of ourselves as engineers, but all we're doing is pulling levers. And on iPhones and everything, we don't have to think where we're at. We don't have to think math. We don't have to think this. We don't have to think that because there's computer programs that do everything. And I know my biggest theory is that there's a theory that Google is doing for the human brain for spatial learning what the calculator did for our mathematical brain. It's giving us the answer we want without telling us how to get there.
Yeah, that is. I remember having to use a slide rule. That was
Abacus.
The abacus. Well, yeah, exactly. Well, the abacus, I don't think is quite as. You still understand some of the mechanics behind that, whereas with the
abacus is still in use, though.
Yeah, it is.
But it's fascinating stuff because we could go off for days about this, but there's definitely people. There's a theory I've been reading about that you look at people who make this technology, the Silicon Valley people, and they've noticed that there's a tendency for people in technology and engineering to be slightly Aspergic, to be more logical and less empathetic. And they create these systems like social networking and operating systems. And what happens is we spend all our time learning these systems. And therefore, we take on the traits of these Aspergic conditions. We suddenly lack empathy. We start concentrating on the functionality. And because everyone is texting and IMing each other, you have relationships that are completely done by text messaging. And and I think you look at the kids today, and there's definitely a lack of empathy among them that they've inherited from these computer programs. And it would anything that puts color and emotion and people back in there. If it's a robot that can sing Happy Christmas or a toilet that will sing you a song, anything that makes computers seem more like people is a good thing.
Yeah, and
I think
90 seconds.
Well, Nathan, listen, we're just about out of time, and it flew by. But again, I want to.
Did we even talk about anything? Yeah, we talked about stuff.
Well, I think we dodged a bullet because we didn't talk about net neutrality.
No, yeah, that was up in there too. Listen, Nate, thank you so much again for filling in for Sandy. Always have a pleasure having you here on the show. Stay with us because we're going to do our after-hour video with our live video stream, and then we'll finish it up. In the meantime, again, thank you for being here. Tomorrow we're going to have computer technology news in the first hour, brought to you by Slimmer Utilities, and then a company called Coalition is going to be here. And they talk about the evolution of carry. They believe that carrying things is an art, and it's always evolving. And they actually have technology to help you carry these things around you, and yet be hand-free. It's going to be a really interesting show to have them on, and we'll hear about that on tomorrow night's program. So anybody, that about wraps it up. Have a great evening, and Charles Tendell will be back with us tomorrow night, and hopefully you'll be here with us too. So until tomorrow night, this is Craig Crossman hoping that your hard disk never becomes floppy. Have a great evening. And we'll see you tomorrow night.
What's the floppy? What's the floppy?
Say good night, Ben.
Good night, Ben.
Thank you for using Blog Talk Radio. Goodbye.
Okay, so we're out for there, but we'll still have our Hangouts. So thank you to all of you who are watching us on the Google Hangouts. And we'll, as I said, we'll see you tomorrow. And again, thanks, Nate, for being with us here tonight.
No problem. And I have a question. I've been trying to post some links in the chat room, and I can't seem to do it.
Oh.
Am I posting them wrong?
No, you should just paste the URL in there.
It should be just paste the URL, but it doesn't hyperlink.
Yeah, I put the link for that Wall Street video we talked about, Wolf of Wall Street. I had to put it in the Google chat. You guys can probably see it.
Yeah, I saw that, but you should be able to put it. You should be able to paste any link that has HTTP or www. It should come out as a link.
I tried it. It kept saying media JPEG view, and I don't know what I was doing wrong.
Not sure. Oh, we'll figure it out.
Maybe it's a redirect.
Yeah, there it goes. It goes Media Commons Futu View JPEG.
I have no idea.
But you should definitely check out that video if you have some time. It's pretty astonishing how much of that movie was CG.
Oh, that works, by the way. That Media Commons, yeah, that works.
Does it?
Yeah, you don't see the whole URL, but it goes to it and does it.
Cool. Okay, well, that solves that question.
All right. All righty. Well, listen, good night to everybody, and thanks for watching us on Google Hangouts, and we'll see you tomorrow night with Charles Tendell.